Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. Starting just a minute. For those of you outside the United States, the podcast is an hour earlier than usual, and that will be the case for probably 3 weeks. I don't know when the clocks change for everybody else, but at least for us, I don't think it changes in the UK. It doesn't change until the 30th, I want to say. And so, yeah, the podcast will be an hour earlier for people whose clocks haven't changed yet, because in the States they did change.
They did. Maybe it'll be the last time.
Yeah, but then it won't be the last time for the UK, so this is still got to be late or early at some point.
Testing. Sorry, I forgot to test my mic.
So what's the thought process behind getting rid of it? Is the idea that we'll just do it like once every decade or something? And do like a whole...
Oh, no. The only reason it was ever done was for farmers.
Oh, because to have longer sunlight. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just to have more sunlight. Like, that was literally it.
Now farmers don't exist, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. But it's just dumb. Like, there's like... It's also bad because it screws up people's sleep routines.
Yeah.
Which are already bad for most people. But so it's like can be unhealthy too.
Did you do the
We
tweets?
can discuss it. We'll talk that. Yeah, they're sent out.
Okay, give me a sec.
I'm not going to tweet just because maybe I will if I have
I just retweeted
so much work with all these networks.
Oh, is my mic... Look at that. See, it's a good thing I checked. My goddamn mic is not set right. It's using the goddamn... Right, hopefully that sounds better. Test. Right, yeah. Sorry, if that sounded bad, it's because it was using the webcam. But now it shouldn't be.
Let's see. Okay, we're ready to go.
Yep.
I am now recording.
I am now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 360 for March 13th, 2025. Hey everyone, Dino Rubino here, joined with Zac Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. And this week we got a bunch of stuff to talk about, including a Microsoft event that will be upcoming in early April. And we'll discuss what that is and what we expect and why it could be pretty cool. Zac will, of course, will go through the latest in Windows 11. We'll also talk about our big exclusive story that happened this week from Jez Corden, which is Xbox Project Kennen, which is their handheld gaming ambitions. We'll also go through briefly GroupMe. We should probably explain to people again what GroupMe is, because they might not know that Microsoft owns it. But while they are killing Skype, GroupMe lives on and is getting Copilot integration because GroupMe is an awesome app and they should just keep at it. But anyway, Zac, how are you doing on this fine Thursday?
I'm not too bad. I'm just still getting my head around the Galaxy S25 Ultra and the millions of customizable features it has. Because there are a lot, and it's quite overwhelming. But I'm getting there. I'm settling in with it. It's nice.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Samsung already offers out of the box a lot of customizations.
Yeah,
which you could spend hours on. And I really do like One UI 7 and their new settings for me is just easier to work with on Samsung versus like a Pixel. But there's a separate app you can download called what's it called? Good something?
Good Lock, yeah, and it opens a whole new world of feature customization.
Good Lock as one word, and it's like it makes no sense. Like, why is it called Good Lock? And then within Good Lock, there's a bunch of sub apps that you can download that let you just really go nuts. What's interesting is sometimes they do take those features and build them then into the operating system. So I noticed there's a lot more in One UI 7 than there was previously. But yeah, you can literally change everything from animations to fonts to icons. You can create your own color scales for the volume switches. You can customize the pen. It's pretty amazing, kind of fun. You know what I just picked up is the Samsung makes a Qi wireless charger / SmartThings hub.
Oh.
And it's like $30, I think I got it for. And it has a little fan in it too. But it allows you just drop the phone on. It changes from the blue light is always on to let you know, but then it has a red light to let you know it's charging, I think, or it's green. And then it changes to green when the charge is done. So you can just visually look at the charger to know your phone is ready. But since it's a SmartThings hub, it allows you to connect more smart home appliances to it. And then what you can do is when you place the phone down on the charger, during a certain time frame, you can have it run routines.
Okay.
So say it's like around midnight and I put my phone down on the charger because I'm going to bed. I could have it connect up to my alarm system to enable the alarm, turn down my Hue lights, and lower the temperature. Uh, and if I have a Samsung air cleaner, which I kind of want now, I could have that turn on in the bedroom when I go to sleep. Like you can just control everything just by putting it onto the charger, which
Yeah.
is really nerdy stuff. But they don't really publish a lot of this. Like this stuff hasn't done well in the U.S., which I'm kind of surprised at. But it's a fascinating rabbit hole to go down.
Hmm.
But I guess let's get into the news. So the big thing was Microsoft announced a new event happening April 4th in Redmond. This will be kind of interesting. I am going to it, which will be fun. So the big thing is, I believe it's 9:30 a.m.
Yep.
Pacific time. So that's 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Friday, April the 4th. They're going to be streaming an event which will be focused on consumer AI initiatives, basically new announcements around that. Around this too, they are also celebrating Microsoft's 50th anniversary. That won't be broadcast, though. The big news here is going to be the AI stuff. And so then the question is, all right, what are they going to talk about here? Obviously, Copilot, but like specifically. Now, my theory, and I don't have any insight on this, but I think at least part of this will be demonstrating the LG and Samsung partnership that was announced at CES with their new smart TVs. And getting back to Samsung, I think they're the one that has the deepest integration, including a remote with a dedicated button on it, which calls up the AI. And I think it's going to be doing stuff like AI. This will be using Microsoft's technology, AI upscaling of video, which we see like super resolution. You can already use a Microsoft Edge, which is really cool. I think it does something similar to audio. And using the button, you can like pause the screen and then ask it, what is that on the screen, or ask for more information about it, and it will find you those details, which is kind of wild. But so some of this stuff was announced in a press release by LG and Samsung, but it was just words. They didn't demonstrate it on the show floor, and that was it. So I'd be shocked if they don't show it off in action, because this could actually be really interesting. I think this is actually huge. Or the other things that it does is, of course, it monitors your viewing habits and then gives you smart recommendations on other TV shows and movies you would like, which we already kind of see, like in Netflix does it, and like YouTube will do it. But this will be, I think, a more global system pulling in from all those different services, which again, I think is a really good use of this kind of technology, because we definitely suffer from, there's way too much to watch these days, right? And so any kind of tool that helps you figure this stuff out, I think is really useful. There's actually there's an app on Android, and I assume it's on iOS too. It's called, I don't know why it's called this. It's May Movie. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's spelled MAI, movie, all one word. And it's free as far as I can tell. But it's a app where you go in and you basically just through prompts tell it what you want to watch, either by genre, year, and all this kind of stuff. And it'll give you a bunch of movie recommendations, a lot that are really kind of off the grid, right? So I'm hoping they do that. I assume also we'll see wider rollout of Copilot Vision, which I just shared on my socials today. It's been out for pro users for a while. It's rolling out to non-users a bit now. which is pretty nice. And I imagine there might be some forward-looking stuff, maybe with Windows. Zach, what is your thoughts on this? Like, what are you expecting?
Yeah, so obviously we don't know for sure. It could be anything, could be nothing, could be a big thing. The fact that that they're sort of advertising this as their 50th anniversary celebration alongside the fact that they're just making Copilot announcements does imply, at least to me, that they are planning to announce something quite significant, something quite forward-looking, to essentially set the stage for the next 50 years, so to speak. Usually when these sort of big anniversary milestones come along, there is a moment where the company goes, we can take a look at our past, you can see where everything we've done to get us to this moment. Now let's take a look at where we're heading next. And I think that's possible for this event. Otherwise, why really such like one live stream and to invite press? They must be making some kind of big announcement. And what could that be? It could be a few things. I've been hearing for a while, a number of different projects and efforts internally regarding Copilot and Windows. There's this the NXT project, which we've talked about in the past. This idea of like a web forward, lightweight AI OS that they've been experimenting with internally. This with a brand new UX, which is very Copilot focused. The entire thing sort of Copilot driven, really conversational. The idea where you sort of talk to Copilot to get tasks done. It brings apps and files to you versus you going to the apps and files. It's able to sort of basically be ambient in Windows constantly, view what you're viewing, even reach into apps and help you complete tasks in some instances. Features like that, which I know Microsoft has been experimenting with and working on internally, that sort of stuff could be announced on April 4th, because that would be the most forward-looking thing they could announce. This idea that, hey, we're building an AI OS powered by Copilot, here's what it can do, and then they show off this new or refined interface where Windows is able to bring things to you automatically just by asking for it, or have an ambient launch pad where it's smart enough to be able to bring in recent tasks and activities and also sync across your devices. So if you're working on a laptop and a PC, or you're working in the Copilot app on your phone and then you move to a PC, it's able to sort of carry that context with you. All that sort of stuff, which I know Microsoft is working on, could very well be announced in. I think it would be a good stage to do that because it is their 50th anniversary. It is a Copilot event. And, the idea, I think it's fair to say so far we've not yet seen what a desktop or an OS in general, an OS UX can be when it's built from the ground up with AI at the heart. So far, all of the big tech companies have applied AI to the existing UX paradigms, which is essentially takes the form of either an app or an overlay. Siri is an overlay. Gemini and Copilot are apps. They just sit as apps on top of the OS. It's not really integrated into the OS, at least not yet. And I think that's what we're going to see in the coming months and couple of years. And I think maybe April 4th could be where Microsoft basically sets the stage for that and goes, hey, here's where we're taking Windows. It's basically going to become an AI OS, and here's how we think that's going to look. And that would be a big deal. And I wouldn't call it a Windows 12 announcement. I don't think that's what we're expecting, but I definitely think Microsoft maybe more conceptually rather than like an official product type thing, more conceptually would talk about this sort of idea where they think they can build this UX, this conversational shell, I believe they call it internally, where you are essentially using Copilot to orchestrate the operating system. And that will be a big thing for people to get their head around. But again, I think this is the kind of event where that would make sense if they're ready to announce such a thing. Does that sound interesting to you, Dan? Do you think that's where we're going?
I think that's a really good prediction. I didn't think about with the 50th anniversary, how it makes sense for them to look forward to the next 50 years, right? That could offer some really fun B-rolls and stuff like that, because that's a question I would ask like Satya Nadella, right? Where do you see all this going? The AI OS we've been talking about ever since this stuff came out, that you're right, right now these are apps that sit on top of things or kind of integrates with Edge a bit. And we're getting tighter integration. I just demonstrated today on socials that, if I ask Copilot on my computer directions to some place from my home, it not only it sends it directly to my phone from that prompt because of phone link. And so then I open my phone and I have like Google Maps in my case already ready to go, right? So we're starting to see some of this deeper integration, but there's way more plumbing that needs to be done in the operating itself, the OS, to make it like really interesting and viable, because it needs in order for AI to work, it's just machine learning. It needs access to your data. And the more it sees, quote unquote, the more it can do. And again, this is where people, will get uncomfortable and everything. But I don't buy this, that people aren't going to use it because of privacy.
Yeah.
I think there will be some pushback. I think some people will do that. There'll be discussions, which we should definitely have on security around it. But I think people have proven over and over again that they're willing to share a lot of information about themselves. We go on every day with security leaks happening all the time, people's data leaking out with credit cards and services. No one stops using them, So, but in this case, it's a little bit more voluntary. But this has a chance to really push computing to just a whole nother level. Right now, computing is all about you open up your screen, you have to know what you want to do, you go and do your task, you have to keep everything in your head. I need to do this, do that. We're getting a little bit better. Oh, you can have a to-do list. So if you want to plan ahead, you can write everything you need to do down. But this idea that somehow the operating system is going to be proactive, remind you to do things, take care of things for you, do routine tasks. We already kind of see it a little bit with email. I really do like in my inboxes now, whether it's Gmail or Outlook, I have priority emails and everything else, right? I think that's a really cool feature to help sift through all this data, but a lot more can be done as well. So I think there's a ton of potential for this technology to really kind of integrate in the OS. And now what Microsoft has planned for that and ideas around it will be interesting to see. Not all of it will be a hit, right? Because a lot of this is trying out things and see what works and what doesn't. But that's the fun of it. That's just how technology is,
Yeah.
So.
I mean, one of the features that I definitely know they've been experimenting with / working on internally is this idea or this experience where Copilot is able to sit, side by side with an app that you have open. And it's able to basically offer suggestions as you're working in that app. Let's say you're working in Photoshop and you're drawing an image or editing some photo of some kind. But Copilot could be there. You can ask it for tips and advice, and it can give you tips and advice. And it can even, in some instances, reach into the app and control things for you. So, for example, if you were in Photoshop and you didn't know how to blur the background of an image and you had this, you've selected it, but you don't know what to press next, you can go into Copilot, which is sort of just ambiently available, and say, hey, Copilot, how do I blur the background of this image? And Copilot will be able to analyze the app and realize it's Photoshop, look up a tutorial on how to blur the background there. And then it can even, carry out that. It doesn't just show you the instructions. It can do it for you. It can go in and click and do those functions step by step to achieve that goal. Without, ideally, the developer having to partake in any APIs or anything. The app wouldn't need to be updated. The AI can just figure it out on its own, like a human would. And so that is super interesting. And I would like to see Microsoft announce something like that, because that is, I think, the future of this. Because I believe, what's the company called? Honor might have already announced a feature like this for their phones, where they're talking about the AI can sort of navigate apps for you. You can ask, for example, their example was, unsubscribe from this app, and it would be able to go into the app and figure out how to do that for you. That's just, it's technology that already exists, and we're just yet to see it really implemented widespread. And so I think if Microsoft really wanted to make a big sort of splash for its 50th anniversary event, it could have a moment where it goes, hey, we're announcing, or we're going to show you where we're going with Windows and Copilot, and it could showcase this entire new sort of UX design with conversational Copilot at the forefront, because that is what they're working on. That's what I know they've been experimenting with for at least 2 years at this point, so it must be getting to a point where it's ready to showcase in some capacity. So yeah, if I had to put money on this event, that's what I would be betting will be announced. Some sort of AI Windows Copilot conversational UX experience that's unlike what we've seen before. Something quite significantly different from the desktop UX we know today. Something that's very conversational driven, something that's very ambient and very contextual, like it can carry context across devices, not just within the same computer, which I think would be a big deal. And also maybe some new surfaces. I know we've got 2 mini surfaces on the way very soon. I know they're supposed to be announced
That'd be interesting
next month. I don't see why they wouldn't announce it on April 4th. Because again, right, it's, Surface is part of their 50 years, right? They might be like, hey, and so now we're announcing some new devices. And then they could even showcase some of the new Copilot stuff on those new devices if they wanted to tie it into Copilot. But that's what I'm betting my money on. Some Windows Copilot stuff and Surface.
It's kind of funny. I was mentioning that MAI movie app, and someone mentioned, oh, MAI stands for Microsoft AI. It does not. They're using a separate service. But it's funny because I think it's dead. So
Oh, really?
it doesn't matter. Yeah, I just went to their website and it's just like DNS probe finished. It's just blank. And when I load the app, it too kind of blanks out. So maybe the company went under, but still, neat concept. Yeah, that'd be amazing if they show off new Surface hardware because, yeah, I mean, and you did talk about what you're expecting, right, for those new devices.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about them before, but the smaller Surface
Yeah.
Pro and Surface laptop, the 12-inch Surface
Yeah.
Pro and the 12-inch Surface laptop, whatever size it ends up actually being. But yeah, those are supposed to be announced next month, and so I don't see why they wouldn't be announced on April 4th. I mean, they could, I guess, do a separate event later in April, but I think that would be unnecessary.
Those are the devices where I'll have to turn up the default view from 200% to 225%. I'm starting to do that a lot of my devices.
Really?
Yeah. Well, part of it I've mentioned before is like my contacts are weird. So sometimes I'll wear my contacts. I can read with them, but it's been difficult.
Yeah.
So I have to make things a little bit bigger. But yeah, it's a challenge getting older. I gotta get LASIK. That's my next step. Talk about technology. Hopefully AI will do that soon. Anyways, well, we'll be there covering it. We'll have full details. So April 4th, make sure you guys pay attention. We also have a lot of stuff planned around Microsoft's 50th anniversary, including some fun articles that I think that everybody here will definitely enjoy. And yeah, maybe as Zac says, we'll actually get some new Surfaces. If not then, hopefully soon thereafter.
Yeah.
So that'd be kind of cool. All right, let's go into Windows 11. What did happen with Windows 11 this week?
Not much. It's been a quiet few weeks for Windows, I must admit. But we're getting to a point where some interesting stuff should be happening soon. You know, we're at that point in the development cycle where Microsoft needs to start sort of gearing up for the 25H2 finalization, if you will, because there's always the forking off the release branch and then getting that to a point where it's final build ready and then, you know, signing off. There's a lot of that to come in the next few weeks, I believe. But there was some interesting news in regards to Copilot, I guess. They announced, so obviously last week we talked about the new Copilot app, which is a completely native Windows UI app. And I think that's probably, again, in preparation for some more advanced Copilot Windows integration features coming at some point in the next year. But one of the features they have already announced is a feature called Press to Talk. So you can be anywhere in the OS, and if you press the Alt and Spacebar keys on your keyboard and hold them down for a couple of seconds, you can instantly start talking to Copilot, and it will reply to you using its freaky natural responses. And that's kind of cool, I guess. I think it's odd that they're using Alt Spacebar instead of the Copilot key, which I guess technically I know not all PCs have the Copilot key. But for the PCs that do have the Copilot key, why isn't this the button? Why can't I hold the Copilot key to talk to Copilot? That doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. It's Alt plus Spacebar for now, which is annoying because I know there's a lot of third-party apps that also use that key combo for a number of different things, including, I think, Power Toys. For Power Toys Run, I think it's called Power Toys Search, that uses Alt Spacebar as well, or at least it has in the past. So yeah, there'll be some clashes there, but it's a cool idea. If you're somebody who does find themselves using your voice to talk to Copilot, this will be a nice addition for you. Dan, I'm actually curious because I know you use Copilot a lot. Do you ever talk to it or do you type to it?
I do not talk to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, I think part of it's trust, right? So obviously when I talk, I'll have that little pause, try to gather my thought, what I want to say, right? I think the AI is, of course, getting smart enough where it can deal with that. But I don't necessarily feel comfortable. I feel like I'm under pressure. Like I need to have the sentence said perfectly so that it understands.
Right.
Even though it's more contextual these days and actually understands what you're referring to. But I just, at least when I'm on the PC, I type fast. So I don't mind typing at all. So I don't know if I'll use that. But on the other hand, if Copilot starts getting more features that, Right now I'm using it to do research. So I bring up Copilot, I type in something, I'm focused on it, I'm reading. But if I'm asking Copilot instead to do functions for me, I could be like writing a paper and then tell it to go do something else, right? Almost like I had an assistant over my shoulder, like, hey, can you go, respond to that Slack or do something like that. If it can start doing stuff like that, I may start using it, for multitasking purposes.
Yeah.
But just for my current search stuff, no. On mobile, yeah, a little bit more. I've used Gemini here for that. Tried it a little bit because I think Gemini just works better on the phone or has a little bit more integrated features. I want to see Copilot still get more stuff on mobile. I love the way it looks. I use it 90% of the time because I do prefer it over Gemini, but I think you can get a little bit better. I still don't understand why. There's two things the mobile apps need, and I still don't understand why on Android it's not there. One are widgets. Like, let me install a widget search. One that could be a microphone button, right? Because they've done this before with Bing, where when you hit it, it goes to the voice prompt system.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can have just a search bar, right? Where you just type in the query and then it goes right into the app. I don't understand why that's not there yet. And the other one, I don't understand why I can't set it as my default assistant. I kind of get it's not an assistant and that it can execute tasks, but I don't think that's a restriction because I saw like Firefox was able to be set as this, right? So I've seen like weird apps. I think even like the Bing app was able to do this once before. I don't think it's a restriction in the store for what qualifies. I just think they haven't done it yet, but I don't know why I can't choose it as my default app because like that seems like it would greatly increase adoption of it. Or at least help.
Yeah.
So.
I do find it interesting that I think you're not alone in the not talking to it on PC. I think there's still an issue people have where talking to a computer does feel unnatural. Talking to a phone is different because, originally a phone was designed to be talked into because that's what it was. Whereas computers never have been that, right? They were never really like that. And so I think people still have this almost sort of feeling silly aspect about it, where if you try to talk to your computer, you feel silly, like especially if you do it in front of people, and that's something I think lots of people need to still overcome. And so that'll be interesting to see where Microsoft goes, especially if they are working towards this AIOS, which is basically fully conversational. Like you would ask Copilot to essentially, or the word orchestrate keeps coming up here, orchestrate your desktop. But I wouldn't want to type that out. I'd be like, Copilot, can you just bring up Slack and put Edge snapped over there? Thank you. I don't want to type that. So I think we need to get over this hump of like, I don't want to talk to my computer. And you're right. The generational AI is able to understand ums and ers and pauses and mistakes even. You can sort of even change track midway through a sentence. Be like, oh, I want you to do this. Actually, scratch that. Let me do this instead. And these days, these AI systems can sort of understand that. Back in the day, they could not. They'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But they sort of can do that now, and that's really quite cool. And that I think is a big natural barrier that people that it needed to be overcome before people started talking to these like actual humans. And I think we're mostly there now, which is quite nice.
Yeah, even the ability to do follow-up questions is really kind of cool. It knows you're like in that same thing. Like the other night, I asked it a question, and I think I used I used something that was wrong, and it gave me the wrong answer, but it was my fault because of the thing I was referring to. And I thought, oh no, I mean this one, and it's like, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. And then it like gave me the answer. It was like weird. It was conversational in that sense. I just checked again under under the Android settings, and yeah, you still can't set Copilot as an assistant. You can do Alexa though, so it's like Alexa's just as useless on your phone.
Yeah.
So, God, the Alexa app, let's be clear here, is garbage. That is the most confusing. I just don't like anything about how that app is laid out. But
yeah,
I digress.
The cool thing about the conversational Copilot, and this isn't just Copilot, you can do this in Gemini, and I believe you can do this in OpenAI as well, is you can interrupt it as it's talking. So if you're doing like the live conversation feature with your voice, you can be having that conversation. and it can start providing an answer to whatever it is you've asked, and you can just start talking back at it, and it will stop talking like a person would, which is it feels so rude to do every time, but you have to remember that it's not a real person. It's designed to basically stop and listen to you, because again, if you have said something wrong and you realized, you don't want to sit there and wait for it to finish its answer. You can be like, okay, no, sorry, I realized I've done this wrong, I meant this. And so that's why that feature's there, but it does feel super rude to just be like, stop.
Are you polite to your AI?
I do say thank you. I do say thank you at the end of it.
I do that too.
Yeah.
I feel like this is up there in terms of litmus test for people.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't have pets, and I don't mean because of you have a job that's interfering, or your apartment, or you're allergic. I don't mean that. Like, those are legit excuses. Like, if you don't have like a dog or cat because you don't like them, and you don't like things that give you unconditional love, and you don't want to take care of something that loves you, like, for me, that's a huge red flag, just as well as people who, are cruel to other people or animals. But also, I think if you're rude to AI, even though it's not real, I feel like it's another sign that you probably are rude to real people too. Because I don't think people necessarily make that distinction in their head. Like, oh, this is AI, I could just be nasty to it. Like that if that's your rationale, it's like, what's wrong?
That's how
with you?
Skynet started. Just
yeah, exactly. So just be on the watch out, people, for those people. If you see them, red flag.
I've had scenarios where I said shut up, not to the AI, but just generally, even though it can hear me, and it's gone, oh, sorry, and I go, oh no, I didn't mean it, I was talking to you.
I mean, we joke, but of course the end game of this stuff, right, is AGI, which would be not only human-like, it'll be superior to humans in terms of these qualities, abilities, and knowledge. Mm-hmm. So, something you might have, like, a robot walking around your house that's smarter than you. Like, you probably do want to treat it nice.
So regarding other stuff happening in Windows, I don't think there's too much else going on. There was a new insider build this week in the Dev and Base channel, which introduced a couple of additional things. They're adding a new change to the start menu, which will now recommend snap groups in the recommended area. So that's nice. Another sort of machine learning AI type thing. I am surprised Microsoft doesn't brand these more as AI. They just sort of casually announced these as just like features, and like, why aren't you calling this like Copilot Enhanced? Like, because I would, if that was me. They're also adding a thing to the File Explorer. I thought this was announced ages ago, but they're announcing it here again today. A new recommended area in the File Explorer app. Doesn't this already exist? I guess it doesn't. They're adding a recommended tab to the File Explorer homepage, which will show you recommended files in sort of big thumbnails, which is nice. So that's an additional thing. They're also adding an emoji button to the taskbar. We've talked about this before, but that'll be in the system tray. Whenever you go into a text field and begin typing, the emoji panel button will appear in the system tray. So you basically, just to let people know that it exists, because like I've said in the past, it's quite hidden, the emoji panel. You sort of need to know about it to use it. And if you've not been told about it, you wouldn't know it's even there. So that's supposed to fix that problem. And then in the settings app, they're adding some nice at-a-glance boxes to the About page in the settings app, which tells you all of your system information, such as storage, your graphics card, your installed RAM, and your processor. So that's pretty cool. And then in the sort of immediate near future, I do believe Microsoft is gearing up to ship Windows Recall very soon, because it's been in the dev channel for quite a while now. I think we're probably going to see that shipped to production in May, I want to say, and that will probably be announced in April, on April 4th. I'd be surprised if it's not. But yeah, May time for Recall, and then I think the Wave 2 stuff is supposed to come in the summer, probably closer to September. It feels like a long way away. Like, remember, all of this stuff was basically announced in May last year, and we're yet to see any of it actually shipped to production, which is shameful. But it is what it is. And to be fair, we should briefly talk about this before we move on to the Xbox and stuff. We should talk about Apple Intelligence. I don't know if you saw in the news this week, Dan. Apple has announced that they're delaying its AI-powered Siri, its in-house AI-powered Siri, the contextual Siri, I believe it's called. And the reason for
Because they're
that,
5 years
yeah,
behind.
is that it's not ready. And yeah, that's caused a bit of an uproar because if you remember, Apple has basically advertised all of its products
New
since
phones.
last year as,
Yeah.
Apple Intelligence Ready, especially this Siri stuff, this contextual Siri. It's been a big selling point in all of the marketing for the iPhone and the Macs. And now they've announced that it won't be ready, probably not even this year. They've said it won't, we're
No.
delaying it by a year.
Yeah.
So it's probably iOS 19 or, 2026 for the Siri stuff. Or even later than that. Like, who knows? I think Mark Gurman was saying 2027. Like,
He said 2027.
it's a ways away. And that is bad news. And, you know, we laugh at Microsoft and stuff and all these other companies for like rushing into this and stuff. But it's not, I don't think, at this point, we can't call it a fad. Like, it's not just a bubble that's going to pop and everyone's going to go back to not doing AI. Like, this is here. And Apple has fumbled the ball quite significantly. And that is, I think they fumbled it worse than Recall. Because I know that Recall was a big controversy last year, but Recall's a shipping product. It's not a proof of concept. It works and it does the job as necessary. Mm-hmm. To be fair, yes, security-wise, it was a bit of a mess at the start, but they have solved those problems now, and the feature works, and it works really well. Siri, on the other hand, this contextual Siri, the Siri that's supposed to be smarter and understand things, is at current, as we currently talk about it, is proof of concept. We've not seen a single working line of code of that functionality. And will we ever? Is this another AirPower? I don't know. But yeah, Microsoft wasn't the only one who fumbled a big AI launch in the last 12 months. Apple has also done it, and so.
I think they're they're definitely in a worse position. That's not our assessment. That was from Mark Gurman from Bloomberg, who literally said they're 5 years behind everybody else.
And it was.
And my theory is, of course, that they put everything into Vision Pro, and just didn't think about AI. They thought the metaverse was going to be the big thing, and they were like, "Oh yeah, here we come." Wait, what do you mean everything's switching? Yeah. More bad news too. Last year was the first year smartwatch sales declined by, I think, 7%.
Yeah, wow.
So,
I wonder, is there a class action lawsuit to be had with Apple here? Because the iPhone 16 was sold on this idea that it will be able to do this Siri stuff at some point soon, like within the year, let's say. And it's not going to meet that goal now. And by the time it can do that, the iPhone 17 will definitely be out. Maybe even getting closer to the iPhone 18. Is there a class action lawsuit to be had there? Because if you're somebody who bought the iPhone 16 Pro to be the first to get access to this feature, and then the next year's iPhone comes out and they get it at the same time, I'm sure there's some claim to be had there. Because I would be annoyed if I was a customer of the iPhone 16 Pro right now and I bought it specifically for Apple Intelligence.
Because, in terms of features, that was the biggest one, or the one I would say that most people would actually make use of. And the fact that that's not coming is, it's fascinating. I don't know. Just a quick side note too. I know I was complaining on not being able to set Copilot as my default assistant. There actually is a way, by the way, if you're on, again, a Samsung phone. I'm sure you could probably do this on other Android phones through a third-party app. But with Samsung, if you download that Good Lock app and then download within it Registar, there is an ability to customize the side key press and hold action, it's called. It's actually really impressive. They have you can turn on and off the flashlight, auto rotate, turn on and off live caption, mute or unmute all volumes, which is great. You can have it show notifications, show recent apps. You can do screenshots, which is kind of cool. Or you can just have it open any app you want to, which is really nice. So I just set it to Copilot. But yeah, so that's a solution if you want to be able to do that. It'll override what's in the default settings, which is, whatever home assistant app you're using, which is kind of cool. So there you go. All right, let's go on, I guess, to the really big news of the week, which is Microsoft getting into handheld gaming. And this is an interesting chicken egg problem. Microsoft has been watching handheld gaming for the last 2 years. And it didn't commit anything to it, as far as we can tell, because you and I have been complaining about Windows 11 effectively being the big problem here, followed by the state of silicon and the state of batteries. But those last two things are dramatically improving. benefiting handheld gaming, but Windows 11 is still a trouble spot. And it still really is, comparing to Steam Deck. Like Steam Deck is literally, it's like a Nintendo Switch. You just pick it up, turn it on, go play a game, right? Whereas there's a lot more you're dealing with when it comes to, handheld gaming in Windows 11. So it's like, what you're going to do there, I'm not really sure. But this week, Jez Corden broke a story saying that there is a handheld device coming out later this year that will be branded Xbox. It won't be made by Microsoft. They're relying on a third-party partner, like a PC maker, to basically make it to the specs and configurations and design wishes of the Xbox team. So it'll definitely have its branded ID. It'll have, the Xbox button, whatever colorway they want and whatever design they want. And let's be clear, there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to the design of these devices, which has been kind of the fun thing to watch here. We have, the Steam Deck kind of clone one with like an MSI claw, but they went with Intel, which is actually, we're getting ready to do our new MSI claw review, the one that's updated with the Lunar Lake processor. And it's actually the better chip right now compared to AMD. It gets better battery life and better performance, which is fascinating. But so the MSI routes, you have Lenovo, which made a giant 8.8-inch display with removable controllers and a kickstand, which is great. They just came out with a slightly smaller version where that doesn't happen. They're also embracing SteamOS on a version too. Of course, you have Asus, started the category in a lot of ways. ROG Ally, ROG Ally X, those are doing well and getting improvements. Zotac came in. We haven't heard much about them, but they have a device I was showing off back at, I think it might have been IFA or Computex. I forgot what it was. And Acer is there too. And Acer was the one who hilariously made their small device 8 inches, while their big device is 11 inches, which is massive. So what Microsoft does in this category is going to be kind of cool, because we haven't just seen companies going like, I'm going to make a Steam Deck, but with Windows, right? They're doing some creative things here. Do you want to go into any more depth about this, and especially what would happen in 2027 that we're expecting?
Yeah. So the project Kennen, I believe it's called, it's a large effort to essentially kickstart an Xbox ecosystem, and it does start with this gaming handheld, as Jez reported. The OEM is reportedly Asus, and they're working closely with Microsoft to be the first, essentially, to launch on this Xbox ecosystem platform. And this is stuff we've talked about before, where Microsoft is clearly trying to de-emphasize Xbox hardware. And what I mean that, I mean first-party hardware. Like, it doesn't. So I think Microsoft is viewing it as they want to turn Xbox into what they did with Windows and indeed Surface, where Surface is the hero product, but then there's an ecosystem of Windows devices that people can go out and buy, and they all run the same software and the same user experience, but you get different devices, different flavors and sizes, and built by different OEMs. I think Microsoft is basically doing that with Xbox. They want to, Xbox as a first-party class line of hardware will continue to exist. There will be a new Xbox 5 or 4, whatever you want to call it, in 2027, along with a first-party Xbox handheld, ideally, assuming things don't get cancelled. But that's still a handful of years away. Microsoft needs to get this platform started now, because SteamOS is already out there and it's already starting its own ecosystem. I know, as Dan said, I believe Lenovo is already launching a SteamOS device. Mm-hmm. That's the start. So Valve has started. Microsoft needs to start now as well. And that's what this device is going to be. So this is a partnership between Microsoft and Asus. Asus has agreed to be the first to launch an Xbox branded ecosystem device. It will look, I'm sure it's Asus design, but it's supposed to sort of resemble Xbox colors and sort of have that sort of aesthetic of being an Xbox. It will run Windows. It's not going to run Xbox OS, air quotes. Xbox OS, for those who don't know, is basically Windows, just with a bunch of customizations and lockdowns in place. But it will be more PC orientated, which means it will be more like the handhelds we've got running Windows now. However, that doesn't mean that there won't be improvements made to Windows by the end of this year. We've heard that Microsoft is working to solve this problem. They are working on a UX for Windows Desktop, which is more handheld and controller friendly. And that, I think, will be something that we see before this handheld announces, because I think that's the point of it, right? It will be the first device that announces that comes out with Windows running this new Xbox-orientated UX of some kind. And yeah, so that's what we know about the Keenan stuff. It is basically the start of this Xbox ecosystem that we've been talking about is on the way. And it's not just Microsoft building the hardware. It will be OEMs of all flavors and shapes and sizes, which also opens up the whole thing to like competition. Right? I'm sure there'll be a baseline. There'll be like, here's a minimum spec you have to target to be considered an Xbox device.
Yeah.
Because you need that, of course, for games to run relatively well. But at this point, there won't be a ceiling. I don't think. I think you can have like a super powerful handheld if you want, and that will be able to run games obviously better than the lower end stuff. But as long as you hit that baseline, I think that's what you'll need to be able to be considered an Xbox. And so I think this is the right way to go. I think this is again Microsoft testing the waters. It's experimenting with the ecosystem and figuring out what needs to be done to create a healthy ecosystem. And then in 2026, 2027, it will launch its own first-party in-house Xbox handheld, which will be, I assume, the premium option. I don't know with gaming, because it's different in the gaming sphere, isn't it? Being the most expensive isn't always the best. Or being the highest end isn't always the best either. It's all about finding a balance between power and price. And so we'll see what they do with the Xbox handheld. But yeah, I expect to see Asus will launch the first one, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lenovo and Acer and others follow in 2026 before Microsoft has its own version ready. And the next Xbox as a console, let's call it Xbox Series X2, but it could be called anything when it comes to Xbox. That is also supposed to be more PC orientated. And what I think that means is not the hardware. The hardware will still be this fixed set of specs, and you won't be able to go in and upgrade bits, I don't think. But the software side, the OS, the experience will be more PC orientated, because it'll be a lot less locked down. It'll be a much more open platform. It will, of course, still have a controller, UI and stuff, just like the Xbox does today. But I think the idea is it will be an open platform, so you would be able to technically download Steam on it if you wanted to, or download games through Xbox and do what you normally do on an Xbox today. So yeah, that seems to be what's going on, and that's what Jez is reporting in his report this week. So that's super cool. And if you'd like to know all the sort of intricate details, be sure to check out the reports on Windows Central, because it is super in depth. And in fact, there are two articles. There's one dedicated to the Project Canon device, as we know is an Asus device of some kind. Asus. And so that's pretty cool.
So, do you think they're going to stick with Windows on handheld? Or do you think like for like their version that they eventually do, they're going to do something that could even be based on Linux, since we know PC games can run on Linux, but have the Xbox Store interface running and handling everything on top of it. So it looks Windows-ish, it looks Xbox-ish, but the underlying software is Linux-based. Why would they not do that?
I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, this effort, this idea of bringing Windows and Xbox together more closely, it serves two purposes. It helps Xbox remain relevant, because PC gaming is huge, Linux gaming is huge, but Windows isn't exactly a particularly loved platform. People don't use Windows because they love it. They use it because they have to. And over the last decade plus, Windows has slowly lost market share. If you look at stats, it's not gaining. It's actually losing market share generally overall to everything else. Chrome OS, Mac OS, Linux, it doesn't matter. It's losing market share. Microsoft needs to start defending itself. And I think the best way to do that is to combine its strongest consumer brand with Windows to basically strengthen them both from both ends. It can help fight off, or rather maintain its dominance in the PC gaming space with Windows if it brings Xbox into the fold. And it also can sustain Xbox as a brand, as an entity with the PC platform, because if you merge the two, especially for developers, right? If the next Xbox is, right, you build one game for Windows and Xbox, developers will do that because it's easier for them versus prioritizing PlayStation 5. Unless Sony is paying lots of money to make games exclusive, which they do that. But for especially indie developers, it would make way more sense to target PC, and by extension, it also happens to run on Xbox. And that, I think, is how Xbox wins going forward. And so to move to Linux, I think it indirectly gives SteamOS the win, even though I know SteamOS doesn't own Linux. No one owns Linux. You don't want to feed the platform that SteamOS is built off. You want to protect what you already have, which is Windows. Xbox runs Windows, PCs run Windows. Microsoft wants to protect Windows as a product because, of course, Windows licenses still make Microsoft lots of money, and so for as long as that's a factor, I think Microsoft will try to protect Windows where it can. And so,
that's a good point. I would also say, just that there would be better driver compatibility.
Yeah.
For the PC versions, they don't need to, because there are tweaks that you need to do to run it on Linux. Not every game technically runs on Steam OS. A lot do, but the ones that also stick out, of course, the ones with the anti-cheat don't work on there, which are some of the biggest multiplayer games that are available, where a Windows-based version shouldn't have that problem. I guess it's just how much can they gut the OS and make it ideal for handhelds.
Yeah. I think initially all it needs is a new shell. Like if you, it just needs to be the Xbox dashboard on top of Windows. That's all the initial, this sort of first wave of things needs to be, because that's the biggest issue of the Windows handhelds now is obviously the taskbar and the start menu is tiny, and it's like it's hard to navigate with a controller. But Microsoft has already built a controller-first UX, and it's on the Xbox OS. It already runs on Windows, just on Xbox. Just bring that to desktop and make that the default experience when running on a handheld, and just have an option in settings to switch between the two. It might require a restart, but that's better than nothing. I think that is what we're going to see.
SteamOS does this too, by the way. You can use the SteamOS default UI, but you can literally make it just run desktop Linux.
Exactly. And I think that's probably what we're going to see at first. And then in the next couple of years, we might see more optimizations and maybe even a special edition of Windows for gamers, which I think is the right path to go down. And we've talked about this before, and the reason why Microsoft hasn't done it in the past is because obviously Microsoft doesn't want to ship a lightweight version of Windows just for gamers, because everybody will want to use that version because it doesn't include all the ads and all the other like services and stuff that get bundled with Windows. But I think when it comes to an ecosystem, it could be a possibility for them, because especially for handhelds, like, with the limited, I say limited, like it's not even limited RAM storage. These handhelds are powerful. They're basically more powerful than laptops from 5-6 years ago. Like, I don't know. I definitely think the UX thing will come first, and it will be simply just be a probably more optimized version of the Xbox dashboard that runs on top of Windows on these handhelds, and you'll be able to switch between the Windows desktop and the Xbox dashboard. And then where we go from there remains to be seen. As we've talked about before, things like Core PC and the win run levels and all this other stuff. Microsoft has lots of efforts where they've tried to streamline Windows internally. I don't know if any of it's ever going to ship, but there are options internally if Microsoft ever does want to pursue that.
They need a digital version of Ozempic for their operating system.
Yeah.
Clearly it can be done, right? There is that project. Was it called TinyOS? Is that it?
Yeah.
That where you can almost fit it on a floppy disk, not that small, but you can definitely fit it on a thumb drive, where the whole point of the project is to strip down Windows as bare as it can, which I think is kind of cool. Big brain idea. If they start to go down that path, let's say they start to streamline Windows, make it better for handhelds, with this Xbox stuff. While we're talking shells, could they bring back a Pocket PC?
What do you mean? Like, as in,
like literally like a Pocket PC, like what we used to have, like my Dell Axum from many years ago, which wasn't even real Windows, right? That was Windows CE. It just looked like Windows. But like this idea, which would ironically kind of be Panos's original vision of having a device that fits in your pocket that still runs all your Windows apps. There is the challenge of screen size, but Windows has gotten pretty good at that, I would say, in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
On top of, we're toying with foldable displays, dual screen displays, and now rollable displays as solutions. I don't know, like, why not experiment with that idea? Because the name is just awesome, Pocket PC. It's like, you know what it is? It's a PC that fits in your pocket. Like, I'm not saying it'd be a mainstream device, but I could see a lot of people would want to use something like that.
Yeah. And let's be completely honest. The if Microsoft is working on like a controller / touch friendly UI for gaming handhelds, 8-inch, 7-inch gaming handhelds, that's only a stone's throw away from a mobile UI. It's not far away. You're right.
Exactly.
I just don't think Microsoft wants to even associate with phone or mobile or pocket anything. Like I just don't think they want to
phone,
go there.
I would say avoid phone as a thing, but it could be everything else. Which, that's the joke kind of with smartphones these days. It's like, who makes phone calls? Now, granted, that is still technically the core function of it because people do get and make important phone calls all the time. And you have text messaging. But for everything else, this could kind of do it, but with much more powerful abilities. I think we're still a couple of years out because, I think it would need to be probably ARM based, to get it down. But, Qualcomm's making huge strides now with its Snapdragon X platform. And batteries are about to go under a big change because of that new technology that is starting to be incorporated into smartphones that makes them, they can pack a lot more into the same size battery, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like, and we know like Microsoft has an AI problem when it comes to something you have with you all the time. Sure, it's your smartphone, but they suffer the problem that, Android ship with a default, Google Gemini, right? We talked about with the Samsung, right? Again, S25, if you buy it, you get 6 months of Gemini Pro, right? Like that's not a Samsung thing, right? That's a Google technology. And of course, Apple someday will have Siri. But like if they could have some kind of small, pocketable Windows AI OS that could, I don't know, like it just sounds like you get a couple people in a room to brainstorm this about what it would be like, and then you cut to a scene, you pull out and Panos is in the window outside looking in sadly like that was my idea.
The Surface Duo as a PDA rather than a phone, I think is a genuine idea that I would probably buy.
Yeah, I mean, like we're getting to that point where the stuff kind of comes together, and especially when you throw the AI stuff in there, right? Because we have like pins you wear now and things that transcribe meetings. Like, I don't know. I think there's some ideation around this that Microsoft should be thinking about if they're going to go down this route with the handheld gaming stuff. And incidentally, with the handheld gaming, I mentioned the chicken egg problem. But what we have seen is this market is growing and doing well. I spoke to a couple OEMs off the record about this, and they were very bullish on this. They're like, yeah, we're seeing great sales, great uptake. People are really happy with it. Obviously, and that's the thing, it can get way better than this, right? Because the battery life is still not amazing on these things, but it's definitely going down that path where I would say in the next 2 years, you're going to start to see really amazing battery life with this. I don't know, Microsoft, free idea. You got the name already, Pocket PC. I just call it Pocket AI PC. There you go.
Done.
Done, right? So I don't know, maybe they'll do that. We'll see.
Or we'll get an Xbox phone.
Oh boy. That makes not a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. But it would be funny to see.
Yes, it would be. They almost did that with Windows Phone 7.
Yeah. I mean, Razer did it, didn't they? The Razer phone was a thing for a little while, and that was a cool concept.
It really was a cool phone.
Never had legs. My favorite concept, remember the concept they did where the phone would dock into like a laptop shell and be a trackpad? That's such a great idea. I want them to make a Razer Phone 3
until you're on the computer and necessarily want to use your phone. But
sure, but you can still run the phone
now
apps.
Now you have Phone Link, to handle all that kind of stuff locally. So it could be done. The funny thing about the Razer phone was it was a gaming phone, but it was just an Android smartphone that was optimized for gaming. But Asus still makes that.
Yeah, it's almost, in a weird way, it's like the Razer phone was a touch too early because cloud gaming wasn't really mainstream at that point, and so it didn't make sense as a gaming phone almost. But now you can get Xbox, games on phones just through streaming them, and not just Xbox, but Nvidia Shield and all the other ones that exist. Like, it was just a touch too early.
And they still have the same problem that Microsoft had with the Duo, which was the camera. The camera was fine, and comparatively to a year or two before it, it was a high-end camera, but it's really hard to optimize this stuff. I would argue Samsung still is not as good as, I think Google's Pixel just blows away anything out there.
Yeah.
But Samsung offers them more flexibility. That 100x zoom is insane. But Samsung, I think, even struggles in this area. So that's one area that was a big Achilles heel both for Microsoft and Razer, which was the camera. It was okay, but okay wasn't good enough for the market, and people kind of tore it apart for that. So, but yeah, I loved the Razer phone. It was fun. It was a great design. It felt great in the hand. The display was amazing. The audio was insane, of course. It was, if you're into like what I'm sure Zac liked about it, it was very parallel all around.
Yeah,
where it was perfectly balanced. Yeah, it was very uniform. So if you have like OCD and hate like off-center things or bezels that are larger on the bottom, yeah.
That's what I really like about the S25 Ultra. It's so uniform on the front. Like the bezels are completely even all the way around. It's so boxy and square. I just think it's really nice.
Yeah, and like this is why I'm writing my article, which I don't know, maybe it'll be out tomorrow, but probably Monday. The S25 Ultra design, I literally consider perfect. Like the only thing I could criticize is the camera bumps on the back.
Yeah.
But everybody has that, right? But that's not like a deal breaker. That's just like a minor annoyance. But the design, I think, is absolutely perfect. But like no company, any company that creates a perfect design can't keep it by definition, because if they keep it for more than a year or two, you're going to have reviewers going, nothing's changed this year.
Yeah.
And it's boring. And, and they'll be like, it needs to be new. And it's just like, okay, this is the S25. We're on iPhone 17, right? Or 16. And it's just like, at what point do they figure it out? The perfect design, right? Like I get, okay, we changed up the materials to titanium or something, or aluminum. Okay, you made it lighter. We made it thinner. That's fine. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. But the actual core design, like everybody had squared edges, then everybody had rounded edges. Now we're going back. Like the iPhone is just going to loop around back to like its design, right? And they'll go be like, oh, it's a throwback. It's nostalgic. Yeah, because we all know the iPhone 4 was the perfect design. And it's like, well, then why didn't we stick with it? This is what frustrates me, because like Surface Pro is like this. Like Surface Pro is basically a perfect design, right? Okay, it could be a little bit thinner. The bezels could be a little bit smaller. Sure, okay. But the rest of it, the core of it is perfect, right?
I think, I think the iPad Pro is suffering from this as well. Like if you look at an iPad Pro, especially the new one, it's so thin, it's so light. The bezels don't need to be any smaller, I don't think. Like the display is amazing. The only thing they can do to it is make it fold.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's the only thing they can go to next. And yeah, you're right. The phone. Like I think for me, the next area where I want big tech to focus on in regards to hardware design is battery tech. I think we're at a point now where the phones last a day. They've been lasting a day for basically a decade. It's time to make them last longer than that. I want a phone that lasts a week, and I don't want it to be much bigger and bulkier than this. Like someone needs to figure out better battery tech. And I know there's silicon carbon batteries, which are now sort of making their way into some Android phones. And that is a step forward, don't get me wrong. And I think they're getting you maybe 2 days if you're lucky. But I want better. Come on, let's push the boat out.
Battery tech is one of the slowest moving parts of this chain. There's no doubt about it.
It's been easier for tech companies for decades now to make the SoC more energy efficient than it was to make it
smaller and make better batteries. Yeah. But they're getting there to making improvements. But this idea of like, there is no perfect design in hardware ever. And technically, even if you find one, you can't stick with it. It just drives me nuts. It's just because, and you know who's to blame for this, by the way?
Probably Apple.
Apple.
Yeah.
Because what company started with the on-the-dot yearly refreshes for its phones?
Yeah.
It was Apple. And they had to do that because they were so far behind.
But back in the day, at least Apple were honest about it, and they used to mark those versions as S models. Remember the term S year was a thing? Like iPhone 4S, iPhone 5S. The year where the phone didn't really change, just slightly
improved it.
Yeah. And then they stopped doing that because they realized they can make more money by giving it a whole new number every year. And that's when people started resenting this, because
Yeah.
Yeah, if this was the S23s, I'm like, cool, that makes sense. That's a cool phone. But yeah, because they give it a new name every year, people get annoyed.
Yeah, and this is Apple's fault because now, like I said, I understood early on because they were so far behind with smartphones that they had to make big leaps in hardware
Yeah.
to improve things. But now we're on this yearly cycle where companies have to announce a new product every year, even though consumers are like, my one from 3 years ago is still totally fine. I don't need a new phone, right?
Yeah.
And then people complain like, well, nothing's really changed. It's like, yeah, well, they probably
not for
shouldn't have
you.
made a new phone. They probably shouldn't have made a new phone this year.
Yeah.
But because the market says we have to have something new, so YouTubers have something to talk about. Like, we're forced into this. Don't get me wrong though. Like, Qualcomm's new processor is great. Like, it's a really good processor. The battery life is great on it, and it's way faster, I would say, than even stuff like a year or two ago. But like, do people really complain their smartphones are slow? Like, the only thing, that's why they have to rely so much on gaming. It's like, here's the most intense game you can play on your phone. It looks great. It's like, okay, but how many people are really doing that, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, nice side rant. All I'm saying is, Samsung, don't change the S25. Screw the haters. It's a perfect design. Just stick with it for a year or two. Be like Dell. Dell gives the middle finger to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the
Like,
Surface...
here's the XPS 14, and it's not changing for 5 years.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Same with the Surface Pro, right? The Pro 4 to the
Yeah.
Pro 7 Plus was basically the same product every year. And like, that was, to be fair, people did get tired of it by the end. But the first few years, I don't think people cared. It's like, yeah, new Intel processor, that's cool. That's fine with me.
Yeah. Yep. Anywho, let's get to, I guess, our final story here, which would be the GroupMe and Copilot integration. So we all have a soft spot here at Windows Central for GroupMe. And we talked about it, I believe, last week in relation to Skype, because Skype bought GroupMe, and then right after that, Microsoft bought Skype, which must have confused the GroupMe people. Like, wait, what? Who owns us now? Okay. And surprisingly, Microsoft didn't just kill off GroupMe and merge it with Skype, or do something like that, right? And the GroupMe was, because it was a separate company at one point, they kept it as a separate team. They were just, because it's a small team, I imagine, but they were just allowed. I heard they were based in New York. I don't know if that's still the case, but they were allowed to just kind of do their thing. And Microsoft has done this before. That's how LinkedIn works, which is why Microsoft hasn't ruined LinkedIn. People are like, they just basically kept a mostly hands-off approach, except for integration where they could. But so GroupMe, for those who don't know, it's just a simple messaging app that has a lot of personality. It's really fun. They have cool emojis, and a lot of people don't use it in the mainstream, but we talked about how colleges in the US often use it for some reason. A lot of class projects are done through GroupMe, which it's strange. I know. It's like, but why not other apps? I don't know. I heard someone saying their HOA uses it. And so there's these like niche. I was a part of a watch group. Actually, if I log back into it, I'm sure I will be still part of it. But like, it was a watch group where we talked wristwatches. Someone invited me to it, and they use GroupMe. And it's like, I realized Telegram has kind of supplanted a lot of this because Telegram has this concept too. But it's still around, still getting updates, and they've done a lot of updates to it. Like, they've done UI redesigns and made it like up to date, and it's a beautiful looking app. So I encourage people to go try it. You can just log in with your Microsoft account, which is cool. So you don't need to like do anything. The tough part with any messaging app, of course, is getting your friends and family to use it, right?
Yeah.
That's why I think a lot of people use it for groups where you can meet people and find stuff locally and do that, where you don't need your friends and family. So it's not like a WhatsApp in that sense. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. But so the big news here is they've integrated Microsoft Copilot, which shouldn't be too surprising. They've, I forgot what they also see. They, last time we covered them, oh yeah, I could finally delete messages. They added voice and video calls back in 2021. So that was during the pandemic.
Was that hopefully not on the backbone of Skype? Because
I'm sure it's similar technology. I assume it's still there.
Yeah, hopefully.
But Yeah, and they also got the find group feature, which is kind of cool. So what does Copilot do? They have, and just like them to do it, they have an emoji-filled changelog because GroupMe is, I don't know, it's just a delightful app. They have write the perfect response. Not sure how to respond in a group chat. Ask Copilot to help brainstorm. We're used to that. That's actually built into SwiftKey already, so, or at least it was. Um, so you have that there. Be the study buddy you actually need. Class chat swirling on a challenging concept. Copilot will break it down for you. See, there's the college thing I was talking about. The thing is, like, you can actually use it with your school ID too. Like your school, if you log in with your college email address, I think it populates it with a bunch of groups at your college. So yeah, for some reason, it's just used at colleges. I don't know how they got that niche, but Microsoft doesn't lean into it enough, in my opinion. Save the group from decision fatigue. Theme parties, travel plans, Copilot makes picking easy. Curate the vibe. Someone share a song they're into. Copilot will build you a whole playlist and help your group get stuff done. From event planning to fundraising ideas, Copilot gives the squad superpowers. Um, I don't know. Cool stuff. Um, I don't know what else to say about it, but it's a cool, if you want to form a group of people to go do things, I probably should have used it for my UFO chat. Going. It's a cool way to, I don't know, do messaging and get people together. And I don't know, I just, like I said, I encourage everybody just go download it on Android or iOS, log into it with your Microsoft account to just take a look around. And just at the very least, just be like, this is a nice looking app, Microsoft. Because I've been arguing for years, and you and I both on this podcast have been arguing for years that Microsoft should premiere this and position it as their primary messaging app.
Yep.
Because it's good. Like, it's got a cool name, it's got a cool UI, it has a history, it already has a niche with college kids, but they don't. Like, they could better integrate it right into Windows 11 if they wanted to, right? They could be doing way more with it, with commercials and advertising it, showing it. Like, they could just do more. And now I think it's a little bit too late. WhatsApp, owned by Meta, is really huge. Now it's big in the United States. It's really big in Europe, but the US, not so much. Telegram is making big strides. We use Telegram a lot. I think Telegram's a great app. It's like the innovation that goes on there and amount of features that they jam in through every update is really impressive.
Yeah.
So I think the competition there is going to be rough, but I don't think it's completely too late to try some things. But Microsoft should have tried things 5 years ago, at least. Yeah, I don't know. You have any thoughts on this?
My only thoughts are I just downloaded the GroupMe app on Windows, and it downloaded the old UWP app, which is apparently still working, but it's definitely not the app experience they want you to be using. I don't believe.
See? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I don't really blame the GroupMe team because they would probably say, well, Microsoft doesn't give us a lot of love on Windows.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of take up there. So why should we invest in it? Because they are literally a small team. So I give them a pass on that, but I don't give them a pass on Microsoft, the bigger aspect, not leaning into GroupMe more. Because, like I said, they should build this into Windows 11. They should have it with you already have to sign into Windows 11 with a Microsoft account, which people hate, but that's already a thing. Just have it auto go into GroupMe, so then everybody else who uses Windows 11 around you can show up as friends and family, and then you can just direct message them, create family stuff. Like, it can be what that nonsense is that Teams for Consumers, whatever we're calling it, is trying to be, right? You could just do that in GroupMe. You can do almost all that stuff right now, but in a format that people are like, oh, I understand what this is, where Teams is like, what is this?
Yeah, and the best thing about GroupMe is the built-in custom emoji that you won't find on any other chat platform. Because some of them are quite rude.
Dude, we used to have a favorite one back when we used this app where it was a little blue emoji that would twerk, and it was animated, and it was adorable. It was so cute. But just sending that to people, There was no way you got that emoji, didn't smile and laugh
It's
at.
so funny. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at mine and Dan's chat group. Me is just sending different emojis to each other.
Yeah, by the way, you can sign in with a Google account, email or phone number, Facebook or Microsoft. So you have options, which is good, right? I mean, they should have something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Microsoft, seriously, just do something with GroupMe. I'm not expecting miracles. It's not going to dethrone Telegram or WhatsApp, but just have a default messaging app in Windows 11. That's GroupMe.
So that isn't Teams.
And just that isn't Teams. Like, sorry, Teams, get out of here.
Yep.
Just let these guys take over. It's a clever app. If you have it set up when you're setting up Windows 11, like MSN Messenger was, I don't know. I don't know why they don't do this. There must be a reason. Someday they'll tell me, but I think the reason is Microsoft Teams is like, no, we got this.
Yeah.
And because their enterprise version does well, even though their enterprise version does well because it's baked in for free with Office 365. So IT deploys it against the wishes of most employees. But I think because of that, they get a lot more clout than they deserve, but they're not a consumer team. And the people behind GroupMe they are a consumer team. So I'll keep ranting about this.
Yes.
Until Microsoft gets its act together. But anyway, let's do, I guess, thing of the week. If you have one, do you have a thing of the week?
I actually don't have one. Oh, yes, I do. I do have one. Another game. I've been playing games recently. A game came out. Oh, actually, it might have been my. It genuinely might have been my pick of the week last week, but I've played it now. I remember I recommended it last week about playing it. Split Fiction. It's brilliant. I've played it, finished it. It's a co-op game, and you can play couch co-op, or you can play online co-op. It's really, really quite cool. It's basically a puzzle game. It's got a nice heartfelt story to it. And you solve puzzles with you and a friend, and the game is full of Easter eggs and fun little mini games, and the I won't spoil it, but the levels towards the end really get creative with the whole co-op aspect and the idea of a co-op game, because the game is split screen essentially the whole time. Even if you're playing with somebody in another place, you will be able to see what they're doing the whole time, and that's by design. It's not negative. It's supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be able to see what they're doing, and that comes into play quite significantly towards the end of the game. And so yeah, definitely recommend it if you're looking for something fun to do with a friend on Xbox or PlayStation or PC.
Cool. Nice. I don't really know if I have anything. I did see a movie called The Order, which came out recently. It was good. Not amazing, but it was a good movie. Jude Law was actually really, really good in it. And it's based on a true story. So if you're looking for something to watch. We've been talking a lot internally about The Age of Disclosure, which is a new documentary that's making a lot of headlines. It's premiered at South by Southwest this week, where it is looking for a distributor. It's directed by a producer who worked with Steven Spielberg, and it's about them aliens, as we like to say. But it interviews 34 high-level people in the government and scientists, including sitting senators and congressmen, including the Secretary of State currently, Marco Rubio, who all say UFOs and aliens are a thing, and it's been a cover-up for 80 years. And what's interesting, this isn't like lunatic, people in their backyard, like I saw a light. This is like people spilling kind of real info about this. And apparently people in the government are planning to use the film as a way for what's called soft disclosure. So that's just a term used in UFO communities about the idea of the government releasing files and telling us what it knows about this. But it makes some pretty bold claims I don't think a lot of people are probably ready for. And I realize this topic is just it's funny to people because it's come on, man. And I was like that for a long time too. But when you really go into this stuff, there's just too much evidence that something weird is definitely going on with it all. But the fact that all these people are now coming on record, testifying before Congress, going, no, there are crashed UFOs. We've got them. There are alien bodies. There are multiple species of aliens, or what they call NHI, non-human intelligence. It's even if you don't believe it, it's just cool stuff to think about. Like I just read this stuff because I think it's cool storytelling. But that movie is it's called The Age of Disclosure. There's no release date for it, unfortunately. But like I said, at South by Southwest, the idea is you screen it, it gets talked about, and then a distributor, Netflix, Paramount, whatever, comes in, they bid for it, and then they do marketing, and then it comes out. So it could be a couple months before it comes out, or maybe it goes straight to like Netflix or Hulu or something like that. But it was on ABC News yesterday morning on Good Morning America. They covered it. The Guardian has done an article about it. Variety did a post. The Hollywood Reporter has reported on it. It's getting in all the mainstream press because it's a really convincing film for people who aren't familiar with the topic. So just go read up on it. Come back to me. Let me know your thoughts. You can tell me on Twitter. You can tell me on Threads, or you can tell me on Blue Sky. I think I'm technically on Mastodon too, but I haven't checked that in a while. I won't spell out all the addresses. It's Daniel Rubino, some form of that, but they all have the same profile picture, and it should be pretty obvious.
You know what we should start doing? We should start because we should just have a website, so you can find me at zacbowden.com, and that should just have all of the social links. Like that should just be how people do this going forward. Everyone.
Well, if you do go to danielrubino.com, I kind of have that.
Yeah.
But it's at the bottom. But it's not as super clear. But yeah, you're right. It's a nightmare trying to post to things now.
Seriously, it's so annoying.
Like I don't like ignoring certain social networks. It's like if I want to share like a photo of my cat, I gotta open like 3 or 4 apps.
Yeah.
It's a lot of copy pasting to do, and I ain't doing that on mobile. I know there are some apps that combines it, but yeah.
Everyone who has a child should instantly register that child's name as a domain so that they can have all their socials on it when they're older. Thinking ahead.
Yeah, surprised that hasn't been done yet. But anyway, as always, we'll do Q&A with the live audience now if they have any questions. You can always join us. Currently, we do this Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. You can go watch the replay there. But yes, other than that, hit us up on the Twitters and the social networks, and we'll get back to you. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Nice. So yes, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them. If there are no questions, then we will not hang around. So get them in quick. One thing I just noticed, using GroupMe again. I think GroupMe was the first app to debut this new sort of design language that ended up in Copilot.
Yes, I'm looking at it now. For those who don't want to try it, it's a gorgeous looking app. Yeah. It's jet black. It's like high contrast.
I find it super interesting that was where that landed first. How interesting is that?
Yeah.
I guess it's the same story with like, what was it? Was it Metro? Metro started as like a Windows Media Center thing, didn't it? And then it grew into, Windows Phone and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's such a cool looking app.
Do you think the Xbox first party handheld will be an ARM device in 2027? I don't know. I think not. I ask me again in a year, because I think we're going to see some interesting things in regards to Windows and ARM towards the end of this year / early next year. I would, if I were a betting man, I'd say no, but never say never.
My watch groups are dead. People stopped posting in late 2023.
When do you think we'll see Windows Core PC being released to customers? Maybe handheld? No idea. I really don't know. I would have thought Core PC would have started shipping with the Copilot Plus stuff last year. Didn't happen. Don't know why, because it is done. It is a thing that exists and you can use internally. It's just basically state separation on desktop anyway. I don't know why they I don't know. I just don't. I couldn't tell you.
Really, it's funny how much like you can do GroupMe that Teams does, because you can create events and share calendars and do all that stuff, you know.
Your thoughts on the passing of Woody Leonhard, who wrote/co-wrote dozens of books about Windows Office personal computing? Did either of you get to meet him? I did not. I actually don't know who this person is, but yeah, unfortunate that they have passed. I wonder if I'll ever write a book. I've had a few people say I should, but I mean, I just wouldn't even know where to even start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I could do a Windows Phone book, the history of Windows Phone. Would people want to read that? To be fair, there is a story to be told there, like the beginning and the life and death of Windows Phone.
And we know people that will talk about it.
I mean, yeah, I think so. Even if it was just off the record, I don't. Oh, like, you know, anonymously rather. I'd still be happy to talk to people about it. I might do that one day when I'm older. Could you see a future where experimental style devices could be moved under Xbox? Do you think they could even bring panels back? No and no. I think the conservative nature of Microsoft's hardware efforts today also extends to Xbox. I don't think it's accurate to say doing a handheld is a risky / experimental idea. I don't think so. I think that's naturally where the Xbox should go next. So yeah, it's not like it's experimental in any way. I don't think we're not seeing super experimental stuff from anyone that's on the hardware teams at Microsoft going forward. I just don't think that Microsoft is interested in being that way. And no, I do not think panels would come back unless they paid him 10 times what they were already paying him. I don't think he would.
And promise and guaranteed he can make a phone or whatever Duo is. Dominique asks, do you think it's worth getting a gaming laptop? I mean,
no.
You're asking kind of the wrong people, because like just Zach and I aren't like hardcore PC gamers, at least in the laptop form factor. Like I have a desktop, which I would game on. It really depends on how much you like gaming and how much you either need it portable. You know, like if you're planning on using this as your main PC, so you come home and you dock it with a big display, it could be an interesting setup because it'd be super powerful. And if you like taking, you know, gaming with you, it's obviously good. But by far, you're going to get the worst battery life on any gaming laptop. They just don't get good battery life, despite being, and they're always going to be heavier and bulkier and all that kind of stuff. And they don't always have like the coolest technologies in them, because it's not relevant maybe to them. Like for instance, one of my favorite things with Qualcomm and Intel devices is the human sensing stuff. So when you walk away from the laptop, it'll lock the screen, and as soon as you walk back in front of it, it detects you, unlocks the display. It does. You get a lot of the AI NPU stuff in non-gaming laptops, because the chips that they use for gaming ones don't have NPUs, because Intel is weird. So you're giving up, you know, battery life. You're going to give up a cool laptop, a quiet laptop, a thin laptop. You know, so they're bigger, bulkier, more expensive. So, but if you game a lot, right, and you're going to use it plugged in often, because that's how you really got to think of a gaming laptop. Yeah, sure, they can be off power, but most people are going to use them plugged in for the purpose of blasting them. But if you don't want to use any of that stuff, then no. You know, I would rather have like a Qualcomm-based PC and use Xbox Cloud streaming with an Xbox controller. Like I could do that on Surface Pro 11, and it's great. Now I can't do it on an airplane, right? So that's a restriction while I'm traveling. But if I'm in a hotel room, I can do that. If I'm on my couch, I can do that. I would get way better battery life. I got a really cool device. It's small, thin, portable, and it has amazing technology in it, right? So that's how I would divide it up. But it's why I don't review gaming laptops anymore, because I literally just don't like them. Like, because I don't game, and that's the
Yeah.
only reason, because I'm
Yeah.
not a gamer. So I took myself out of that equation. Like, all right, and I wish more reviewers would do this, right? Because it's like, if you don't like Windows, you shouldn't be reviewing any Windows laptop. Like, if
Yeah.
you go back and you use a Mac by default, I don't know why you're necessarily reviewing Windows laptops,
Mhm.
unless you're coming out and saying, hey, I'm a Mac user. I think Apple does the best stuff. Let me take a look at this PC. That is an interesting take. And I think that that's one that people should read, because you might have an Apple user go like, this is actually a pretty solid laptop that I would actually probably use if I didn't have this one, right? But when they're not honest about that, it drives me nuts. It's kind of because it's like,
Yeah.
come on.
I've never understood why it's okay for a Mac user to review a Windows laptop and say this laptop is not as good as my Mac, and then that be just taken as gospel. Whereas if a Windows user reviews a Mac and says this kind of
Yeah.
sucks and it's not as good as my Windows laptop, people go, oh yeah, well that's just because you're a Windows fanboy. So
I think it's because I think the Windows people are probably more honest. I think a lot of the reviewers don't come out and say that they use a Mac.
I don't know. It's just yeah, it's
So
true.
so you
Yeah.
technically don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like who at The Verge, like, do you know uses a Mac? You know,
I
know
know
a
they
few.
all use Macs.
You know, so it's like, and then, you know, we have some of our own sites, right? That is the same thing. So yeah.
Someone was asking, will the Copilot event be live streamed? Yes, to our
Yes.
knowledge, Microsoft has confirmed that it will indeed be live streamed, which tells me that they are planning something big, because Microsoft is not afraid to not stream events. So the fact that they are doing it tells me that they do want to announce something relatively big. Someone else was asking, do you have any clue if MS will ever produce another phone in the future? Yes, and the answer is no. They will not.
Hold on a sec, I'll be back in a minute.
Would you buy a 1-inch smaller Surface Pro? Yes. No, I actually wouldn't. I think the Surface. I'm not a fan of the Surface Pro generally, to be honest, and I think even the 13-inch one's too small for me. I like the 14-inch Surface laptop. It's a 13.8-inch Surface laptop, but if we're rounding, it's a 14-inch Surface laptop, which I think Microsoft will be doing for these upcoming smaller Surface Ps. They will be certainly rounding the number.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example too. It's like, you just don't like the Surface Pro form factor that much.
Yeah.
And it's totally fair. And it's like why we didn't have you review the Surface Pro.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in my review, I'm upfront. I'm like, I've had every single Surface Pro, and I really like the form factor, and I use it all the time. And that's why you should read this review, because I'm going to tell you as a Surface Pro user what I think. But again, like if Zac picked it up and like from his perspective, it would be interesting too, right? Because, you know, he did like the Surface Pro X a lot. So.
Oh yeah, the Pro X is the closest I've been to loving that form factor. Absolutely. Only it had a 120 hertz screen. Someone was asking, do you foresee the Surface Pro going away at some point? No. I think the Pro and laptop are safe. They're solid offerings in Microsoft's lineup, and I think they do both sell a reasonable amount to justify making them continually.
Yeah, it's clear that they have like a lot of enterprise support, which is always kind of interesting.
Nilay Patel once said, the Surface Pro is the perfect iteration of a bad idea. That's such an Apple fanboy thing to say, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, it's okay to, like I said, say you don't like a form factor or a class of PCs. Like I just said that about gaming laptops. But to ignore the fact that some people do desire that is weird.
Yeah.
You know, because it's totally fine to be like, I say it too with the Surface Pro. You know, I get most people don't like it. It's, in fact, it's why when we did the laptop of the year, we put Surface Pro 11 and Laptop 7 because of that reason. Because I understand most people probably don't want the Pro 11 form factor, so they can get the Laptop 7, which has all the kind of same benefits to that. But that's just being honest. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny because obviously Apple does the iPad Pro, which is today a rip-off of the Surface Pro. Arguably worse as well. Because I don't agree that their version of the keyboards and tablet setup is better than what Microsoft does. I think the built-in kickstand is better than the whatever Apple's doing with the iPad Pro.
Yeah, I mean that's a hilarious point. The fact that Apple is so gone on their way so far to make it Surface Pro-ish
Uh-huh.
with their own that style. Would you buy a 15-inch Surface Pro? Probably not. No, I think that's a little too big. I've had Samsung make some pretty big tablets, and they're just kind of, but they're also weirdly shaped. They're too long, I think. 14-inch, yes. I think a 14-inch one would be fine.
I think they really need to focus on thinning it out a little bit. I think the weight and the thickness of the Pro currently is its biggest drawback, and
if they do 14-inch, they could do that.
Yeah, they could. You're right. But if you just
could,
if you hold it up next to the iPad, the new iPad Pro, it's no contest. It's like
yes.
It's genuinely like looking at the Duo 1 versus the Duo 2. It's like Christ.
Yeah.
So one of these is a chunky boy.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they'd have made a Surface Studio monitor, nothing else, just the monitor. Yeah, everyone has said that for many years. The Surface Studio's display is peak Surface, or just peak Windows PC display. It is the XDR display of the Windows world, but better because it has touch. The Copilot on Samsung Tizen, is that a path for Copilot in the smart home, at least via Tizen? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what Tizen's role in this would be. It was just Samsung that announced it, so.
Well, Tizen runs on Samsung TVs, doesn't it? I believe that's the OS that the Samsung TVs run. Tizen, and Tizen also runs on probably everything that's an appliance. I would imagine. Because I know it doesn't run on the smartwatches anymore because that runs Google Wear OS. Same with the phones. I think the Galaxy Fit 3 uses Tizen. I could be wrong about that. It's hard to make a Surface Pro without it being top heavy. Yeah, well, that's kind of the flaw of the whole design for me, is that it is top heavy, and there is, you can mitigate it, and the whole thing with the keyboard that sort of connects via the magnet on the bezel is one way to do that. But also just making the device lighter is also a thing that they should be focusing on. Are the new Snapdragon X Surface Pros as performant as the Surface Laptop 7? It was always bottlenecked. The performance is comparable. I believe if you look at benchmarks, the Pro 11 will throttle quicker, and that's just because it's a much smaller chassis. The SoC is right behind the display. There's just less room for it to breathe, so it will throttle faster. But in burst performance, it should be more or less comparable. X Plus to X Plus, X Elite to X Elite. Right, final call for any questions, then we will probably be heading out. Is Windows 12 coming out anytime soon? Probably not. I've always said that if Windows 12 is to happen, it probably won't be until next year at the earliest. I don't think it makes sense this year, given the Windows 10 end of life and Microsoft pushing people to move to Windows 11. Like, they need to not muddy the waters and muddy the messaging as well, because it becomes convoluted if you introduce Windows 12 on top of everybody migrating to Windows 11. It's like, what are we doing? Where do we go now? Like, what? So I just don't think it makes sense. Do you think they'll offer a flex keyboard for the Surface Pro 11-inch? Let's say 12-inch, because it sounds like it's got to be closer to 12-inch.
I don't think so.
No, not a flex keyboard. I think there will be a keyboard accessory for it. I do not believe it will be a flex keyboard. This is supposed to be the air quotes more affordable device, and by more affordable I mean maybe $150 cheaper. So yeah. There was once hope and rumors where Surface Book was going to be a Surface Pro, wasn't it? There was never rumors. There was always the suggestion / hope that the idea would be to combine the two. So the Surface Pro would just be able to dock into a Surface Book base, which would have been great, to be fair. But yeah, it never happened. Will some features meant for Hudson Valley be recycled for future Windows 11 update? I no idea. I don't think that radical UX that they were exploring will ship. I think that was a Panos Panay era concept that never got off the ground once he departed. Or was scrapped once he departed, one of the two. I still have my Invoke speaker. Do you guys? I do have one. It's over there. It's not plugged in and hasn't been used in years.
I might have one left somewhere, but I think they've been disposed of.
Yeah, they're fine Bluetooth speakers now, which is literally all they're useful for.
We just don't use that stuff. I even on my Ecobee turned off Alexa because I like this. This is stupid.
Yeah.
I get it. For some people, it could be cool if you have like a really big house and like it's far from anything else. But like my Alexas are all in shouting distance. So.
Did you ever get the Cortana-enabled thermostat? Dan did own the Cortana thermostat.
Yep.
The glass.
It was cool. It was a cool thermostat. It looked great. It was nice. What was neat about that thermostat, that was one of the first to do air quality monitoring, where it told you about VOCs. Now my Ecobee Premium has that built in, which is a great feature, by the way. But yeah, that was I was actually trying to look for that recently because we had to swap out our thermostat and I couldn't find it.
Surface Go 4 has maintained a stubbornly high price on the resale market. I feel like they must have made those in pretty limited numbers. Yeah, I have consistently heard that Microsoft has struggled to meet demand for the Surface Go 4, if you can believe it. But that just shows how popular it is as a product line for the enterprise. Because Go 4 is an enterprise-only Surface. There was never a consumer version of Go 4. Which is also why the price is still so high, because you don't see them rarely, if ever, on sale for less than retail price. And that's one of the curses of being a business-specific model. And that's also why I don't think this upcoming smaller Surface Pro replaces the Surface Go, because the Surface Go is $499 or $549, something like that, significantly cheaper than this upcoming Surface Pro, which will probably be $800 or $900 starting. Whereas the Surface Laptop Go is a different story, right? The Laptop Go starts already at $800. And the smaller Surface laptop coming is supposed to replace the Laptop Go because it is only supposed to be $800, $900. So that the small Surface laptop replacing the Laptop Go makes sense, but the smaller Surface Pro replacing Surface Go does not make sense. I still think the Surface Go will exist and a Go 5 will happen probably in the next 18 months. Some point, and hopefully with ARM and 5G. I believe that's been on the docket for a long time now. So. Yeah.
Also, the point about pretty limited numbers is key. Microsoft got very stingy years ago, rightfully so, kind of, with production and keeping it in check. Mm-hmm. The one thing they don't want to do is have overstock of unsold stuff. So I'm not saying that the Go 4s are, built to demand necessarily, but it's pretty close. They don't want to keep a lot extra. So inventory is always going to be tight for kind of all Surface stuff.
And I hear mostly good things about the Go 4 from people who own one. Like, performance is fine, like it's not groundbreaking. Battery life is okay, could be better. ARM would help with that, obviously. But in regards to the product as like a daily computer for what it's designed for, it's perfectly fine. It's not like the Go 1, which was a cool idea but really underpowered because of the processor.
I wonder. Someone asked. Surface Pro 12-inch, would it get the same high-def webcam as the 13-inch? Probably not, but it does raise some interesting questions, which I can't answer here, which is currently there's the Qualcomm and Intel versions of the Surface Pro 11. I don't know. I'm curious if the cameras are exactly the same, because Qualcomm uses, because of their stack, I forgot what it's called, MIPI, I think it's called. they use a different type of camera technology, the same one that's found in smartphones, which is why you can basically unequivocally say that Qualcomm laptops have better cameras because they're using the same tech and stuff as smartphones are, which have a long history being optimized. The Intel versions typically don't. I say typically because I am using Lenovo's new laptop, which, as far as I know, is one of the first Intel ones to use this technology. Like, they finally did it. Now, Microsoft probably did too. I can't confirm that. So that kind of plays into also this idea about like the camera that would be in this version. I think it'll be still really good, but I don't know. It could be. It depends on where they want to cut corners, right?
Yeah.
To save money.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's one of the details that we just probably won't know until we have them in hand. I do know that the display is a lower resolution. It's not the same resolution as the current Pro 11. It is probably Full HD Plus, I imagine. It's not whatever the current, I think.
Which makes sense because you're going to still get I don't think the PPI will be as high as the Pro 11s, but you'll still be closer.
Yeah. And I was going to say as well, in regards to the differences between the Intel and Qualcomm Laptop 7 and Pro 11, there's another odd difference. The Intel versions in the Surface app, you can limit the battery charge to 80%. You can't do that on the Qualcomm versions. It is a feature, but on the Qualcomm versions, it's automatic. You have to have your laptop plugged in for a certain amount of time before it starts charging to just 80%. It's called smart charging. And on the Intel version, smart charging is still there, but you can turn off smart charging and just manually set it to 80, which I would love to have as an option on my Qualcomm one, and I don't know why it's exclusive to Intel. Microsoft, if you're listening, please adjust that, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird because it's on smartphones.
Yeah, it's on most things. And you can even go into the BIOS on Surface and set it to, I think, 50% or 60%. Like, just let me do it in the goddamn Surface app. Why do I have to buy an Intel laptop to do that? Come on.
Why is it so hard for Microsoft to make a time machine backup that can back up everything, including apps? Yeah, I don't know. I will say that I don't use this feature at all. Every laptop I get, I set up new out of the box because so much technology is just cloud-based these days. It's just logging into your account and it pulls down. So I don't really find much value in restoring everything. But I get it, But that may be one answer, to be honest, which is Microsoft would have obvious telemetry on people doing restores and all that kind of stuff. And maybe it's just not that high, whereas Apple, I could see something like that would have been much more valuable 5 years ago, right? Where there wasn't as much cloud stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, Apple built that tech out a long time ago, where it was more valuable, and now it just sticks around because it's just there, right? And they don't want to deprecate the feature. Whereas Microsoft never really did have a great one. There's also a lot of third-party software that does a good job of it too. And now we're 2025, and people just don't use it a lot anyway, so they don't see the need to invest in making it. So that could be one explanation, but I don't know.
Can you force enable charging limit / kiosk modes on Qualcomm Surface, or is it purely automatic? You can in the UEFI or the BIOS settings. If you go in there, you can limit the battery charge, but you can't do it from within Windows. In Windows, it's automatic, and it will only go down to 80% if you let smart charging do its thing. Whereas on the Intel ones, you can manually go in and set it to 80% in the Surface app, which I just don't know why that wouldn't also be an option for the Qualcomm one. Maybe they'll enable it in a firmware update coming, but yeah, interesting. Right, I think we can call it there, unless you want to...
I forgot, one thing. On those new Surfaces, I keep forgetting, are we expecting Qualcomm or Intel?
For the smaller ones?
Yeah.
Qualcomm. Yeah, Snapdragon X. Probably X and X Plus. I don't think X Elite.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Follow us on the socials. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.